Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pass the Noise, a open discussion forum. We just throw out a topic or topics, and we just have an open discussion about it. We hope that you'll join in. You can join in by making a comment in the comments. You can use the call-in link that I will provide shortly to call in and just whatever thoughts, feelings, whatever you had that you want to share. It's fine with us. We're not asking you to agree or disagree. We just want to hear some input, hear your input or your take on the subject at hand. So we thank you for joining. I am your host, Elder Michael Hightower, joined as always by by Apostle T.B. Walker. Apostle, how you doing tonight?
Hey, listen, I've been called worse, brother. I've been called worse. I'm excellent. Excited about some of the stuff we got to talk about tonight. There's a lot to unpack. You know, anybody's been watching the news or watching what's going on out there, man, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, we have a few. I mean, we usually, if we can, try to queue up. I mean, there's just so much going on. We try to queue up a few subjects, and we get to as many as we can.
Right.
We don't want to rush through any particular subject. We want to get everything out of it that there is to get, and if we have to revisit it next week or another time, that's fine with us. We just want to make sure that we do each topic that we have justice for sure. So, speaking of topics, you know, if you're watching this, then you've seen some of our other shows. If you want a topic for us to address, you want us to address the topic that we haven't addressed yet, or you want to revisit something, either way, hit us up. Hit us up on our Facebook page, hit us up on our YouTube page, and let us know what topic that you would like to see us tackle. And we'll, see if we can fit it into the schedule. But we'd love to hear from you about the things that you think would be interesting and important to talk about. So hit us up and let us know. Tonight we do have, like I said, we have a few things queued up, and the things we didn't get to last week, maybe we'll get to this week, maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see. First thing our first subject matter is Kanye West, who seems to stay in the news for whatever reason. Let's just watch the clip and then get into a discussion of what's going on here.
A Christian can stand next to anyone. We can go visit R. Kelly in prison. We can go talk to Harvey Weinstein.
That's what Jesus did.
Yes.
You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi. You don't deserve to be called that and demonized.
Well, I see good things about Hitler also. This guy that invented highways, invented the very microphone that I use as a musician. You can't say out loud that this person ever did anything good, and I'm done with that. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler. Hitler was born Christian.
And the Nazis, in my view, were thugs that shook people down, did a lot of really bad things.
But they did good things too. We're gonna stop dissing the Nazis all the time. The Jewish media has made us feel like the Nazis and Hitler have never offered anything of value to the world. I gotta watch my accounts because they've been frozen by the Jewish banks.
I get the frozen.
I don't like the word evil next to Nazis. I think we need to look at, I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis. I don't really care that much about Hitler. I love him. No, he seems like a cool guy. It's like it's like he had a really cool outfit and stuff, and he was a really good architect. And he didn't kill 6 million Jews. That's just like factually incorrect.
Well, I think Hitler did target and kill some people. So I think,
I think Obama killed Palestinians.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to take a shower real quick.
That's
after hearing that.
A lot. That's a lot.
Well, you know what? I think one of the great takeaways is that if you know anything about Alex Jones and what he's been going through himself, and some of the accusations about his, insensitivity and racism and all of those things. When you get Alex Jones blushing, right? When Alex is there and he's, pulling his hair out, you have accomplished something in the scandal realm. When Alex Jones himself is saying, now, wait a minute. You're not a Nazi. What a setup. He's trying his best to open a door for a fellow comrade in the scandalicious world. And yet he can't do it because Kanye's like, I'm doubling down on it.
He's trying throughout that whole clip. He's trying to rehabilitate him every step of the way. And to your point, he just can't be rehabilitated. It just can't happen. Now you bring up his issues. To your point, I think that's kind of what we're seeing here is that he's right now has a $1.5 billion judgment against him
Right.
for claiming that the Sandy Hook school shootings were a hoax. They sued him in court. They won. He has a huge, massive judgment. I guess he's going to file bankruptcy. I mean, I don't know how you're going to pay $5 million doing a podcast, but it's yeah. So we're talking about a conspiracy theory guy,
right?
Who's sort of down with all of this. But when you've gone over the line for them, you know that you've really done something. And we know, I don't know why. We can talk about this later, but I don't know. I know why, but even after all these years, Hitler is still like a third rail. Like there's still it's interest and electrocution. Like there's no walking that back. Like he seems to be like this figure that just has this unique place in history. I mean, not undeserved, but it just don't go there. Not with him.
No, well, you shouldn't go there. But I think that again, as many historical people have been revisited, right? And revisited by people who are revising history. What we're seeing right now is, what Kanye is doing. There's obviously some things that are wrong with him, right?
Sure.
And a guy who comes into the interview with the, with the completely blacked out face. Yeah, there's some issues there, but I think that in a lot of ways, Kanye represents a group. As crazy as it is, you'd like to think that this guy's isolated on an island. But if you check out comments, like there are people who, don't like what he said about Hitler. But, oddly enough, when you saw, what was that in Virginia? You saw some of the militia movements, they're also resurrecting a love for Hitler. There are supremacy groups that use his birthday as a, a tattoo for, so people can know, like, okay, where we stand. So I think in a lot of ways, Kanye is really kind of, he is a spoon that's really stirring up and, the bottom, the remnants of something that we thought was gone, but it's not. It's definitely not there. It's not gone. And now I think there's obviously some problems with Kanye West, though. I think that, this isn't just about him being a spokesman for some small minority group. Kanye has some serious problems, and I think we're just watching him implode publicly.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is that people like Alex Jones continue to give him a platform and hand him the match and some gasoline and then let him set himself on fire. I mean, I'm sure that he didn't expect all of that, but you have to know when you invite him onto your platform that you're going to get something, like other than a ratings grab. I mean, what's the point of having him on other than the ratings grab that you hope that you're going to get? What else is there?
Well, you know what? I mean, I think that Alex Jones probably responded like a lot of people responded and have responded to Kanye. I mean, he's been beat up on, right? I mean, people are piling up. And so I think other people who've been piled up on, look at Kanye, and I think there's this weird hope that maybe he's going to say something that'll turn the whole thing around. Maybe that if we give him this interview, because you can see Alex was saying, wait a minute, you're not a Nazi lover, right? You don't deserve to be villainized like that, right? Because that's not what you're saying, right? And then Kanye's like, well, hold on. No, I like Hitler. He's done a lot. Matter of fact, let me misquote. Let me just lie about it and say he invented the microphone that I'm using.
Right.
Listen, what he says is off, but I think what he's also said is wrong, and he lies. And the truth be told, Kanye is also being exposed for who he really is. And I think in a lot of ways, this isn't just his own illness, but Kanye does represent a group of people that are really, for the sake of hate, for the sake of anti this or anti that, are believing lies and are using platforms to spew those lies. Because Hitler was not the great inventor. I'm not sure why somehow he's been made to be the architect of these great inventions. But the truth is, this is a continuation of great lies. And coming out of the Trump era, we came out of this place of lies. But you know what? It's being people that are still connected to him. You can really begin to see how the idea here is to change history, to revise history. You can't actually change it. But if you get people who are ignorant enough not to study history, not to know what really happened, that's why we have what we have today. That Kanye works because there are a group of lots of ignorant people out there who'd rather have someone else do the homework for them.
Yeah. And so there's clearly something going on with him. and these people who are giving him a platform are, in my view, somewhat irresponsible in doing so. But they're all sort of in the same mold. So I guess to them, it's just like, he's just one of us. We're just going to give him the platform and just the way we go sort of thing. But, I was thinking about this. I'm curious why, Hitler is more reviled than other evil people throughout history. Even in his own era, I mean, he had allies. It wasn't like he did it all by himself. I mean, he had the Mussolini in Italy, and he had Hirohito in Japan. So it's not like he was like all to himself, and he couldn't have done all the things he did without help from other people. Like, other people aided and abetted him. Those two at least, and the rest of sort of that Eastern European bloc also was complicit. At the very least, they aided or abetted. Right? They didn't do anything to sort of stop him from doing these things that he did. And we don't really have like the racist guy. You can't really say anything. But we don't really have that. I mean, we don't really have that. It doesn't seem like in any other arena other than with him. I mean, it's interesting phenomenon.
I think that, in all honesty, that is probably the Jewish connection. The truth be told, the Jewish people have done a great job of keeping the history alive. They won't let you forget it. And I'm not saying you should forget it. But, among many, many other people who were part of this, we don't hear about Stalin, right? I mean, the atrocities of Stalin, we don't hear about Stalin. People don't hate Genghis Khan. He's estimated to have killed maybe 40 million people, right? Which greatly surpasses Hitler. But I think in some ways, because Hitler is the modern Genghis Khan in one way. And I think on the other way, he's been the chosen target. I think he's been the chosen target. And, in some ways, because media, and I think because the whole idea of the Holocaust is so sensitive, and, and because he's the guy who's been picked out, I think it's just impossible for people to kind of make the judgments or even the connections, correlations, the contrasts and comparisons without being shot down by, and I don't want to say like the Jewish cabal or something like that, but I think that there is a great, and it's not even propaganda. I think the Jewish people have really done a great job of keeping this in front of everybody's eyes. And better than a lot of other people. I think that, one of the reasons why that's happened is that they simply won't let it go. They refuse to get over it. That's what it looks like, right? Now, you hear, and nobody says get over it. Now, one of the reasons why we don't know about people, the racist guy, is because the chant has been in America, especially in America, and in Europe, in so many other areas. Get over it. Forget about it. Let's get past it. The Jews have decided no way. And it's been 60 years, and they still are saying, nah, you say it's anything about that, you talk about that, we can take money from you in 2022 for something you said about something that happened in 1942.
Right.
And that's major.
Yeah.
We might take I think in some ways there might be a lesson here, in their playbook. They're very organized. The Jewish people have organized, and so the anti-defamation leagues, work really, really hard to make sure. And I think in a lot of ways, they have a direct focus with the Jewish community. So when you look at that, they're organized to make sure this never goes away. We have, and many other groups have kind of acquiesced to the chant, let it go, get over it, forget about it, put it in the past.
Yeah. And I think the part of it is like, we're splintered. As the people, we don't have this cohesive sort of teamwork / whatever you want to call it, because we do tend to not understand. Like, to your point, like, I think Jewish people understand, regardless of what sect or whatever, Orthodox or Hasidic, whatever, if someone says something that's anti-Jewish, it affects all Jews, no matter what sect. So they don't get bogged down in with, you're not really as Jewish as me, or we right. No. Someone says it's coming for me, like it's coming for you. We don't do that. Like, we don't have a sort of, if somebody says something racist, they're really coming for all of us. They're not talking about him because he's darker skinned than me, or he's this or he's that. They're like, it's talking about all of us, and we don't have like a coordinated like response to that. And people can just come on and just give a fake apology. And to your point, we got to get past it. We got to move on. We got to heal. To your point, they've never healed. They've never allowed healing. The wound is still as open today as it was, 60 some years ago. It's the same. They won't let it.
Yeah, or maybe they have healed, and this is how healing looks. It is, I'm healed enough to hold it up to make sure this never happens again. Maybe that is what we're seeing is an open wound in our community. That this isn't the whole idea of heal, get over it. Maybe getting over it is not the answer. That's not healing. And I think that we've been sold a false bill of goods that putting it in the past, suppress it, stop talking about it. We've been sold that that's what healing looks like. Never talk about it again. But that's not what people who are working to get healed from a drug addiction or alcoholism, they don't stop talking about it every week, a couple times a week. Hi, my name is John. I'm an alcoholic, right? They never are. Their healing comes from talking about it, putting it out there, making sure people are aware that this happened. The Jewish people understand that. Many other minorities understand that. I think that what you see in the Black community is that we simply don't have that. In some ways, we have gotten tired of hearing it. The Jews never get tired of hearing it. They never get, there's never a point where they're like, not another one. We don't want to hear another Schindler's List. No, they never get there. And I think that's one of the things that we could take a page out of their playbook.
Yeah, I don't know how we would do it. I mean, I think it clearly can be done. You'd have to, there's a lot of work to be done, but I think there's a way to do it. There's a way to organize in a way that so people understand if you do this or that, we're coming. We're coming. You're going to, not sort of, you're not going to do it again, sort of thing. And then to be able to impose some kind of penalty or something on people, I think we're a long way from it, but it's not impossible. It will take a lot of work and a lot of willingness to sort of remove all these litmus tests we have for Blackness. Like if you don't believe in this policy, you're not really Black, or you're Black, or Uncle Tom, or you're this, you're a sellout. I think you got to dispense with all that and understand that when somebody denigrates a Black person, they're denigrating all of us. And there's got to be a realization of that in order to move on. I think the people who instituted these systems did a great job of pulling out people and saying, well, you're a credit to your race. You're not like them. You're part of the talented top percent. So we're not going to mess with you. It's sort of like, so then you pit them against each other so that you never have that cohesive understanding that, no, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what you think of me. It's just like, if you say something about them, they look like me. So you're saying something about me. And we don't get that. So some work to do. So we'll see what happens with that. But you hope again, we talked about Kanye many times, and we hope that he would get help. Because clearly he's having some issues, but yeah, so hopefully he'll get some help and somebody in his circle and his family, whoever's close to him, will be able to, first of all, keep him off of platforms, keep him out of interviews, because that's not what he needs to be doing. He needs to be, doing something, self-reflection or whatever, to sort of deal with his own inner whatever he's dealing with inside. There's nothing to do with this other stuff he's talking about. And so, so hopefully he can move on from that. And speaking of moving on, let's get to our next topic. Involves transgenderism and hormone therapies and things of that nature, just to say generically. We do tend to think, because we do understand a lot about the way that the body is composed and constructed. We understand DNA, we understand all kinds of other stuff. But there's a lot we don't understand. We still can't stop people getting a basic cold. There's a lot of things about the way that our bodies interact with other things that we don't understand. We don't understand. We do understand, we know, but we don't. The way that someone will respond to one type of whatever is different from somebody else. So if you give me hormone therapy, I have some issue, you give me hormone therapy, you and I might react differently based on any number of our body chemistry and other factors. So there isn't like this thing that you just do this thing and it's just like everything's going to be okay, or we can reverse it, or we can do something else. And I think science has gotten us to the place where we think that the human body is like our playground to do whatever we want, and we can just no long-term consequences because everything's reversible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially as we look at reassignment surgery and things like that, what we're going to find, I think in some ways the jury is still out. We're really kind of still in the process of now seeing what the Frankenstein work that's been done in the lab, what that's going to look like, because we're looking to change reality. You know, gender reassignment, even the thought that like you can really be reassigned, as if, you know, it was a, you know, as if it were somehow assigned and therefore can just be, you know, blotted out, versus it is a reality. You're kind of born in that reality. And I think that's a hard thing for people to understand. And we're playing with something that is going to come back and haunt us in the long run.
Well, let's take a look at
Okay.
an example of you know, so you know what can happen.
Like, this is what giving a 16-year-old girl testosterone looks like.
So I got out of my haircut because my hair was driving me nuts, and I shaved it because I'm tired of watching my hair thin out, and it's less distressing if I shave it. So when I talk about being too far gone, I don't really know what else to call it. This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. You know, and I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return.
And we labor under this delusion in modern life that nothing's permanent, everything's reversible. There's no, all of your commitments, all of your obligations, all of your decisions about your own body and your life, none of it's permanent. You can just change whatever, but that's not true. That there is a lot of irreversible damage that came as a result of this transgender insanity, this fad that's going to pass, but the damage is not going to pass.
He's right on point.
That's not reversible.
Right.
That's not reversible. You were
Well,
saying he's on point?
I think he's right on point. I think he's right on point. I mean, I think that, you know, and I think that was a, you know, great clip to be able to kind of, for people to really be able to see what this laboratory experiment that, you know, we're calling sexual reassignment is really doing to individuals. You know, we look at it from a community standpoint, from a worldwide standpoint. I don't think we really will it down to Jade and Susie and Johnny and what this is going to do with them. We look at that one picture, we're like, great. Kind of in the same way we've looked at, you know, people who got the Brazilian butt lifts and, you know, you see the pictures, but then there's a story behind that. There's some deaths behind that. There's some people who wish that never happened. And those aren't the videos we see. We see that, like, look at me, I'm skinny, and now look, I've got all this. And those are the pictures that we see. What we're not seeing, and what's trickling through, are the people who have 2 pounds of cement basically on their breast, and they're, you know, that they're sitting on now. You know, there are people who look and say, I'm so lopsided. You know, I was walking and it just boom, like my chest just went down. Silicone just start going into my body. All of those things are really us. You know, I don't want to say we're playing God. I think we're playing man.
Yeah, and some of the things that young lady was describing, I think she was 16, are pretty, like, not surprising. They are major, but also, like, okay, sometimes men have hair thinning and those things like that. You don't really see that in women that much. The voice and other things that she's experiencing.
Now, does she not want a deep voice? I mean, she wanted to be a man. I guess maybe not like that kind of man.
Didn't think about it, right? When you've had the same voice for 15, 16 years, that's what you're used to. That's what you expect. Right. And so the confusion isn't that my voice isn't deep enough. The confusion is the other stuff that you think that you want to have, but now you have it. Now you have the thing that thing that happens to young men sometimes. You have the thing that happens to men in terms of the voice and the hair. I mean, that's not like crazy. Like, she's seen plenty of men who have.
Shout out to the other ones. Maybe she'll see this video and say, "Welcome to the club. This is your
But she's not far from it. I mean, it's just that. But that's a obvious and should be somewhat expected consequence of wanting to be a different gender and to put stuff into your body that changes your body chemistry. That's always dangerous. I mean, whether you're 26, 36, 56, or 16, but 16, your body is still developing in some ways.
Right.
You're really asking for it. And that, that sort of speaks to the permissiveness in our society that would allow a teenager to undergo any of these kind of therapies or procedures, because she was clearly in a place of regret. You hope that they don't do anything to themselves, don't harm themselves in any way. But she was clearly wrestling with the fact that this is not what I wanted or expected, and that's real. And to your point about the things that people do to their bodies, they have a thing in their mind that this is what it's going to look like. This is what's going to feel. And then when it's something else, it's like, this is not what this is not it. This is not what I thought. I thought it was going to look like, Brad Pitt or Denzel or somebody.
Right.
What I expect. Wasn't this better than this? But, to the extent that we have control of these things, we have very little control. And I think her example is the example of we don't have anywhere near the amount of control that we think we do.
No, so what happens with her? There's nothing. She now kind of sits back, right, and has to wait for the process, or is there some kind of balancing that can be done? Would you suspect? I mean, I know you're not a doctor, this case in particular, but is she stuck, for lack of a better word?
I think so, and I think she kind of made reference to this is the kind of like the point of no return, because how do you go back? Like, if do you change the body chemistry again? Can you do it twice? I mean, I would think you can't. I would think it would be even more dangerous than what she's got now.
Absolutely.
Because now you have all these things based on testosterone happening in your body when you pump your body full of estrogen. How is that? That might be worse than what you have now. There's no telling what could happen. I can't imagine that I can't imagine that. I mean, it's hard to imagine that they allow this, but I can't imagine that they will allow a reversal process that would try to undo that. I think that would be beyond irresponsible. Not that this wasn't, but I think that that's even another level of sort of liability and irresponsibility that they won't do. They're going to tell her, you just got to live with it. You can stop the treatment, so you can, so you'll kind of you are where you are, so you won't have any additional effects. But that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the look of this. I mean, in some ways, that this is probably going to be the clips that will never be seen on a larger scale, right? This is not what the industry is going to want to be seen. This is not what the world is going to want anybody to see, nor I suspect that anybody's going to want to hear someone who says, I may be past the point of no return, meaning I am looking back. I'm thinking about, I wish that there was an option for going back. And I hope that more people hear this and understand that this is permanent. That these are decisions that are being made by 15, and parents have to consent, right?
Have to
consent at this stage. Can you imagine? So now, if you talk about gender dysphoria, I don't feel good or comfortable in my body. What does this bring about, and what emotional damage is this going to cause in a person who is watching themselves at a stage in their lives where they know at 16 they're not supposed to be there? Like even as a 16-year-old boy, chances are her hair is not going to be thinning quite like that. What does she expect from that voice? That, when you look at this, you don't know what kind of voice you're going to get, right? So God has already given you one, and you're saying, I'm not good with that one. Doctor, can you hook me up one? And now this person is literally stuck and locked in to that place. It's a shame. It's a shame, but it's a shame also for parents who are willing to go there. I look at, I wonder, this is something that we're talking about, but we started out talking about, but let's look at Dwayne Wade and his son, daughter, son, Zaya, right? Right.
Biological son, yeah.
Biological son. So when you look at this is the kind of consent that we're getting, that you see with young kids who are making decisions where they can't even drive, right? They aren't able to drive. They're not even cooking by themselves at certain stages, but yet they're looking and saying, hey, here's what I want you to call me from this point on. Here is who I am. And I know my sexual identity. Yet there's so many other things about myself I don't know. What a strange world that parents are now really, really being bamboozled. And I think that's the attack. And as you look at what's on cartoons, when you look at all the things, the other attacks that are there, it really is not just about kids. It's really now indoctrinating parents to be permissive with children who really need to be led and don't need to be leading this charge. Kids are starting to lead the charge here. And parents are being, moved in some ways, bullied in some cases into now believing that if you don't buy into this, you're not a good parent, that you're missing something. And I think that, man, that's a major, major attack on our society.
Yeah, I mean, our society's kind of been heading that way for a while, where we're more permissive and more sort of less restraints on young people. They gotta be able to express themselves and gotta be able to, whatever. And I think this is an extreme, but it does show the extent to which, I mean, this is huge. I mean, and it shows the extent to which parents buckle under. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to put it other than buckle under to the whims of a teenager or a preteen who actually doesn't know any better. I mean, that's the thing that's
right.
Not come to a 40-year-old. I mean, this person actually doesn't know half of what they think they know. They don't understand all the ramifications of what they're doing. They don't understand all the possible side effects that could come with this. They don't understand that their inability to deal with the gender they were born with, that's something else. I mean, that's just we're not doing that. I mean, as parents, as a society, we're not doing a good enough job of helping kids understand that just because you don't like something, you feel out of
right,
think or whatever, that's not necessarily mean it's time for change. It may just be time for you to work on getting in sync, whatever that looks like, or within your family, whatever that looks like. That's what the goal should be, not to sort of, well, I have to change my appearance, I have to change the way I do this, I have to change that, I have to change this. I mean, I saw something, this is sort of related, but not really, but I saw something where some young lady got her eyeballs tattooed and now she's blind. So I mean, it's just this is the stuff that we blue and purple or something crazy.
Right.
I mean,
we're living in the last days, brother.
Yeah. I mean,
this is kind of the sign of it. This is really the sign of it, where I mean, you had scripturally, tells us that children will lead, right? Since the children will lead you. We're in a place right now where we're saying, here is what our society looks like when it's led by children. Now, on one hand, we're saying you can decide sexually who you are and permanently. Yet, if you commit a crime and you kill somebody, we're looking to say, well, juvenile's mind is not, it's not fully formed. You can't give them a life sentence. You can't sentence them to life without parole. You got to give them an out, right, for a crime. Yet this place is a life sentence, and we're looking and saying you're not fully formed enough to have robbed the bank or robbed the liquor store and shoot the guy at the liquor store, but you certainly are. Your mind is formed enough to make a permanent decision about whether those breasts should stay there or not. You can make a permanent decision about whether you want to have whether you want to be a woman today, forever, or a man forever. I think that's backwards. And I think that we're really looking at a sexual devolution. We're going backwards.
You hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, it is sort of, it's moving backwards. We taught
them, right? That's what, the whole, did you have the conversation with your kids about the birds and the bees, right? That was the way that worked, right? We taught them about this. Now children are teaching parents, and parents are coming and saying, hey, you know what? I didn't know this. Johnny informed me, and really he's teaching me about sexuality. You know what? We say that and people look and say, wow, that's awesome. You're a listener. How about being a teacher? Because that's really the job, right? You wouldn't have your science teacher say, hey, you know what? You really taught me a lot. I've been listening to you the whole semester. Thanks for teaching me science. And that's what your job is. So I think that, man, we're topsy-turvy. We don't know what this world is going to be like. When we look at the last days and we talk about, I kind of started out with a joke, but man, can you imagine the trauma and the young people and the people that are going to come out of this so broken, so twisted mentally? What happens now when you've made this kind of choice? What's going to happen with this person mentally from this point on? What relationships are going to be affected by the fact that I hate who I have become?
Yeah, and it's ironic because the bulk of the pressure is actually not coming from the kids; it's coming from other adults, right? Other adults will say, "You're not going to let your kid do this. You're not going to let your kid do this," and then we celebrate. Oh, you letting him wear the dress? That's just you're the best parent in the world.
Yes.
And so we get positive reinforcement for that, and negative if we say no, you're a male. We don't wear dresses. it's backwards. But I think that again, it tells us where we are as a society, that parents, adults, and other, grown people would put pressure on somebody else to allow their kids to run their house. But that's where we are.
Right.
You're in charge.
But you're right though. That pressure campaign, man. If we track it back and we go back, 10 years, you can begin to see the pressure campaign, right? The indoctrination of kids, right? In terms of, and you can see it on TV, you can see it in their cartoons, right? That just gets them comfortable. Peppa Pig with, the first, I think they've got the, two mommies. And one of the, I'm not sure if it's Peppa who says, I've got two mommies, right? So it was an introduction to two polar bears, and they were female, right? So it was about getting children used to this alternative lifestyle, right? But there's also been an indoctrination that's going on, and a shaming of parents who have stood, and parents who have said no. And there's been a concerted effort in social media to just beat those parents into submission, to the point where you may not have gotten them, but people who were watching 10 years ago have watched this, they've been indoctrinated, and now they're not sure. I think parents are afraid to be parents now. I think in some ways they're looking and saying, I don't even want to be vilified. I don't want to be hated, because the child is out, right? Children are coming out without their parents, right? They're coming out on their own social media pages and saying, hey, I'm this. They've been calling themselves he, she, they for 4 or 5 years without their parents knowing. And when they come out, they also letting the world know, hey, just letting you know, coming out to my parents tonight. Hey, dad was a jerk, right? So dad is under, right? He doesn't accept me. Right. Mom does. Now, millions of people are chiming in. Millions of people are now going on his Facebook, Twitter. Millions of people are going on his page, telling him the kind of parent that he is, and also giving them testimonials. Hey, I was right where you were 5 years ago, and now I'm comfortable with him. I mean, her. You right? I mean,
right.
There's been a major hate campaign, a major pressure campaign to get people to conform. LGBTQ, man, the LGBTQ, and I just found out LGBTQIA. I just found it intersex and asexual.
Okay, I hadn't heard that. Okay,
I just found it out yesterday. I hope this maybe I'm breaking news to some other people. I thought the letters that they had covered it. I thought the Q was supposed to cover the queer, right? I thought that was supposed to cover everything.
Everything.
Turns out, I guess if you're intersex, you're not queer. So I guess that's a totally different thing, right? That's the hermaphrodite, the person who may be born with male or female, or various different chromosomal, hormonal issues, and the asexual, right? So I guess that person gets I don't do anything. I don't want anybody. So I guess they're in that group too. Why can't they just be male or female?
Yeah.
Right? Why is it? But so I think all of those, man, when you begin to look at it, the same way we were kind of talking about how this pressure campaign that works in the Jewish community, where they were able to keep it in the forefront and not let it go, and a great deal of pressure. And there's this cat has claws. Well, guess what? The LGBTQIA work in the very same way. They're on TV. They're everywhere. Look at the commercials. They're indoctrinating the country and the world to let you know, listen, at the end of this commercial, sometimes I look and I say, okay, who's going to kiss who? Because I can tell. Okay, you're dancing, and then at the end of this, a big Tarby commercial. And as long as you're not active, as long as you've got protection. And then these two guys kiss, and I'm ready to, jump out the window. Simply because I realize I see what you're doing, and we see it's working. It's working, and it's doing what I suspect the enemy wanted to do, to bring people to the point of no return. That young lady can't come back. She can't come back, and you can tell she wants some solution. She never said I want to come back, but she wants something. And guess what? Just like with selling your soul, ain't no coming back. If that's possible, but there's no coming back. Right? It's the same thing. This is a soul selling situation that's designed to bring about depression. That's meant to take people who said, I was on the edge of killing myself, and look, now I'm not. And then boom, I am now. I didn't know my hair was going to do that. I didn't expect to have a deep voice. I don't know what voice she wanted. Maybe she wanted to sound like Brad Pitt and not Ving Rhames. Maybe she didn't want Barry White. But when you roll the dice, right? That's what happens when you play man.
play genetic,
Russian roulette.
Yeah, I mean, this is what it looks like, because I'm sure that whatever doctor did this warned them, had to, by just to cover themselves, warned them, like, you know what, these are all the things that could happen. Just like with those commercials, like Big Darby, when it gives you a whole list of things that could happen to you if you take this
Right.
thing, 50 things at the end. So if you take this, if you take this therapy, these are all the bad things that can happen. But when somebody's set on escaping from the prison of their existence or their body, whatever, all they're thinking about is rainbows and lollipops. They're not thinking
Right.
about, I'm messing with my body chemistry. That could have adverse effects that even the doctor can't tell you about. He's guessing. He's like, man, this could happen, that could happen. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we're really in the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
When you think about the surgery, I mean, we're really at the beginning of this, and on a wide scale. So the truth of the matter is that these guys come from us. They come from us, right? They don't come from another planet. They don't come from the planet doctor, right? They come from us. They're from Dubuque, right? They're from Des Moines. They could come from where we come from. So the truth is, they don't have a crystal ball. They don't know. There's no doctor in the world that would have ever said, "Listen, just let me let you know, there's a great chance, based upon what I know, you're probably going to lose some of your hair. It's going to just go away." Nah, they're going to be as shocked as anybody else. In the same way you got those, those plastic surgeons in the beginning who I didn't know what this was going to do. I didn't think it was going to break.
Right.
But it did, so you did. And so, but you signed a disclaimer, right? You knew this could happen. It's the very same thing. These disclaimers won't help, though, mentally. That's where the problem is. But here's the crazy thing: put her out there, on 1,000 sites, and make it go viral, and you won't change it. You won't change it, because I think we're already in the loop.
Already in, and the person who's looking and wants to do it's going to say, "That's not going to be me. That happened to them. It's not going to happen to me."
How many drug videos? How many videos do you have out there with people who are slobbering all over the place? I took bath salts, or this is from fentanyl. And how many people are looking right now, today, who've seen laughed at those last week and have fentanyl in front of them right now, who are thinking, yeah, that's him slobbering. That's not going to be me.
Not going to be
He's
me.
been over in a U shape, for 2 minutes on the street. Nah, that's not going to be me. That's where we are. That the warnings this warning, this is a serious warning. I actually know we're like Jeremiah. Jeremiah, go warn them, but they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to hear you. We have to do it, right? That's what Pastor Noah is about. But the truth is, I know that people they're not going to heed.
No, and it's sad, but we already know that they're not going to heed.
Right.
We have a comment.
Uh-oh.
Pastor Pam Maziar. Wow. It seems to me that the non-reversible situation is God's way of showing his displeasure in the whole matter. He says he will laugh at our calamity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's great displeasure that in this, and I think in some ways, this is one of those things that I don't even know that you need God to come down and put his finger in it as if it would have worked already. It's in truth, the displeasure is coming from the calamity, the fact that this is self-imposed calamity. That God's displeasure is that you are brewing up a potion that is going to hurt you. If we try to play God, it's going to hurt us, without a doubt. I think the displeasure is in that this will not change people.
It won't change, and that's definitely he's definitely going to be displeased with that. But I think there's also some displeasure with the fact that he's being mocked.
Yes.
You did it wrong. You got it wrong. You messed
right.
up. You made a mistake. You forgot you didn't hit the right lever. So I think there's an element of saying we're going to fix your mistake. That's
right. Go ahead. This is what you gonna fix my mistake. This is you have it. You have at it. And I think this is when you start stirring up a pot that God says, okay, do not stir. Well, when you get that, this is kind of what happens. If you cook the cake and it says, make sure that the butter has been out overnight and make sure the eggs are out, and you just take them out of the refrigerator, I'm not sure if the cook is now saying, hey, I caused that. I think the reality is that look what you did by not following my directions.
Right.
You caused this. So, God's displeasure, I think, has already been there by the disobedience of man. This is now man getting some consequences. And the question is going to be, okay, was that enough for you? Did you touch that and did it burn you enough for you to now decide to stop? I think that that's the place. And I would suspect that there's displeasure there, but I also suspect that there's also some grieving of the Holy Spirit, that man has no idea how he's destroying himself. But I would certainly agree with Pastor Maziarz, no doubt. Yeah. Shout out to Pastor Pam Maziarz too.
100%. Let's see. We have about 15 minutes left. Let's go to I think we can fit in one last topic. The photograph of Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones from 1957. Where he is on the steps of a high school in Arkansas, in Little Rock. And the group is essentially, well, let me play the clip and then we can they kind of explain it in the clip. So
we're going to start with this photo. It's from September 9, 1957, and it shows Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones among a crowd of white students trying to keep black students from integrating at an Arkansas high school. So joining us now, sports and feature columnist at the Washington Post, Sally Jenkins. What did you learn about this from this photograph?
Well, I think the first thing you learn is just how widespread the segregationists were in Little Rock and North Little Rock. Jerry Jones's high school was North Little Rock, which was across the Arkansas River from Central High School, which is the school that got all of the attention when Eisenhower sent in federal troops to protect the Little Rock Nine at that school over there. But the segregationist agitators were actually very active on both sites. And the fact that we knew that generationally, Jerry Jones had to have experienced the events in Little Rock more generally, but to find him in the photograph and to learn that he experienced one of those incidents right on the schoolhouse steps was pretty revelatory. We were blown away, to put it mildly. We discussed why he hadn't been at the forefront of this issue until now. And the short answer to that is that he's been more concerned with trying to win, Super Bowls and appointing, men who were old friends of his or who he knew to the job.
Yeah. So I don't know why. I think this is a commentary on the way that we teach history in this country, the way history has been taught in this country. That sports reporter, I'll just say she's in her early 60s. I don't know that we have to see a photo to know that Arkansas was segregated in the 1950s. I don't think that we should need something to pop up to remind us of that. And we shouldn't be stunned that Jerry Jones, who we knew grew up in Arkansas, I think he went to the University of Arkansas.
Right.
He was involved. We knew that there was a bunch of unrest, but we were shocked that Jerry Jones was there. Why? I don't understand that. I don't understand why you would find he was in proximity to racial disharmony when that was pretty much,
that was the way. That was the South 60. He was at an all-white school, right?
Yes.
He's standing out there among other white student kids. Right. He didn't. Now, I saw the guys in the front who were menacing the black guy, but I didn't get. I guess I've been trying my best to try to figure out where the scandal here is. Am I missing it?
I don't think.
Jerry Jones was a product of his time. Now,
right.
he didn't do. There's nothing that there's no stones thrown. Right. He was just there.
He was there. So I think that he was there, and he says he was there as an observer, just that he was curious, might well been the case. However, if you're there to see what's going to happen, then you actually become part of the mob. Like the point of the mob is to block these kids from entering the school. If you're there for whatever reason, the black kids see you correctly as someone who's preventing from entering the school. They're not making they're not making any distinction between this kid is not, he's right. He's really stopping me, and this kid's not stopping me. That's clear. The kids in the front are older. That's clear. Jerry Jones is like 14 in this picture. So it's clear that
right.
The other kids are upper classmen. One of them has a cigarette in his mouth. So it's clear that they're older, and they're like sort of the ringleaders.
Right.
So I don't think that there's so much a scandal directly related to him as it is just, again, the country and the history. Like, again, people are losing their minds over this.
Right.
Like, you didn't know that Arkansas didn't segregate or desegregate schools until the 50s? Like you didn't know that. You didn't know that Eisenhower had to send troops into Little Rock to have so the kids go to school. You didn't know that. So if you knew that, I don't understand why we're uncovering this like it's new information, like it's something that nobody knew. That's the part that is kind of weird to me. Like now, I think where people are getting on Jerry Jones is like, okay, so you saw this, right? You saw people because apparently the kids were eventually pushed out, weren't able to enter school that day. So you saw this, like you knew what this was like. What have you done over the course of your life as a person in position of power to sort of remedy, rectify, speak to these issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Why though? I mean, what's the reason for? Why would a 14-year-old kid who was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. I mean, he says I was there, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and we agree that maybe the kids who were there may not have seen him as anyone else, but part of that mob, right? Part of the group. But from a historical standpoint, now that we're 60 years out,
right.
we have a 14-year-old, and why does he need to do anything to repair something that was done by the government in the South? This was the law of the land. Segregation was the law.
Right. I think the line that people are drawing is that as the owner of the Cowboys, he hasn't done enough in his own businesses to sort of promote diversity. I think that's the criticism. Like he hasn't done enough. Like he knows what this stuff is like, but he hasn't done. Did he learn anything as a 14-year-old that sort of informed his life going forward and made
he didn't.
It appears not.
He didn't, but like neither did I. Like, I mean, there's so many things at 14. I think people are reaching and looking and saying, you haven't. Now, of course, he's paid, players millions and millions of dollars who are from various ethnic groups. And I think that the question of like, what have you done versus, where have you misstepped? Let me see your racism versus now you have to, since you were there and you were part of a time, you were born in the same system, right? Now, does he owe anybody anything to like, let me prove that I'm a proponent of diversity? Does the owner of a football team need to do that? Why is the society even requiring him to do that, especially since he was just in a picture?
Right. I mean, he's been the owner for quite a long time, and I think the world has changed in a lot of ways. But
he's hired quite a few black players.
Yeah, over the course of his ownership, he's been clear that he's hired people he felt comfortable with.
Yes.
Whether you want to say just other white guys, which makes sense. I mean, you might not like it, but
it makes sense.
And it's his right to do exactly that. And I think the world has changed to the effect that you really can't say that now. You can't say that. You can't be the owner of a professional sports franchise and say, I'm only hiring white guys. I don't feel comfortable with that. You can't say that. That might still be the case, but you can't say it. And so as the standard sort of moves around, he's sort of caught in sort of this thing where what's the right answer? What's the right answer now? Where his answer was, sure, I could have done more to promote diversity. Yes, I could have done this. Yes, I could have done that. That's the obvious. I mean, he didn't say that to me for me to know, yes, you could have hired black coaches. Yes, you could have hired black GMs. Yes, you could have promoted people. Yes, you could have spoken up more. Yes, you could have done all of that. Did he have a responsibility to do that? Would have been nice, but his obligation as a business owner is not to do that unless it's illegal. Like he hasn't done anything illegal. You might still not like it, but he has done what he thought was best and what he was comfortable with in his own business.
Sure. And I don't think that that's racist. I think that, in some ways being around who you like, I think there's a whole idea, black people are able to be comfortable with, a black owned business. It's black owned, we put it out there. Now, if you would ever say it's white owned business, man, what would it be if a black person said, hey man, you know what? I'm a black head coach and I'm going to hire other blacks because I'm going to hire who I'm comfortable with. People would be, that would be racist. But in one community, people would say, now that's what you need, brother. That's what I'm talking about. See, I think that this whole woke culture is turning on itself, and it becomes in and of itself an unforgiving, in some ways racist it just changes racism and just changes the arrow and the focus, but it still is the same. He's running a business, and unless we've got some things that says Jerry Jones sure could have done better, so could everybody, but he didn't discriminate. He picked who he wanted for his team. I wonder if is there anything wrong with that? Because isn't that the goal that we want for every owner, every person who owns a business in America to pick who they're comfortable with? What's wrong with that? Unless you're saying,
is that the goal for who? I mean, I think if you look through the HR, you look through the HR dynamics for any company, I think you'll see you try to hire these kind of people, or you try to hire those kind of people. I think the companies try to create diversity on purpose. So I don't think they always hire necessarily who they're comfortable with. It will vary from company.
Well, now I mean, and like in a private business, right? Because would you see, Jerry? Would you see the ownership in this way the same as you would say a corporate America?
You mean like a Walmart or something? Walmart.
Sure. And how do you look at that and say, with the number of black players that have played for the Cowboys, like, can you? I mean, where's the lack of diversity? Except when you look and say, "Well, I don't see it in the front office."
It's different because, to your point, it's kind of weird because professional sports franchises are private, but in a way they're public because they do their business in public. You know pretty much everything that they're doing.
But they're technically private.
Technically, they're private. But technically, they're generally owned by one person or family, or maybe a group of people. But they own it. They own it within the confines of their thing. Congress is always threatening them to take away their this or that, but they never do. So it's private. They're free to do whatever they want. But is it fair on any level to look at his hiring practices at all? Like, is that fair, or is it just not fair?
I don't think I think it's fair. I think it's fair to look at it, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the findings have to also be fair and accurate. Again, as you look at it, and I've heard this discussion, especially from the Black community, but I also hear the same Black-owned business. Everybody here is Black. That's the reason why you should come here, because it's Black owned, and Black people, you're going to find them in every sphere, in the company. Now, that's not viewed as racist. That's viewed as diverse. But now I think for a guy to say, hey, I've got Black people peppered all throughout here, but I get to decide who is in certain places. If I choose a white guy, am I necessarily racist? And I think you got to find racism versus, hey, those last two people he hired a white, he must be racist. But the Black guy who says, man, I only hire Blacks. I'm only going to the HBCU. I'm only going there. This jerk came in here from Duke, had the nerve to think he's going to get hired. And I went to Bethune-Cookman, and I hired that accountant. And listen, isn't that equally as bad? Doesn't that put us in the exact same spot? It's all Black. But now you couldn't say it's all white. Come on in here, because this is an all-white business. Doesn't that put us in the same exact spot for the things that we hated? Doesn't that make us in the same kind of discriminatory? In the exact same way that we said, no, that we don't want them saying only whites. But now how do we have a sign that says only Blacks?
I think the answer to that is that people feel like, because of this country's history, that Black people should, when they can, look to hire Blacks, look to hire women. When they have bits, should look to hire women, because those are groups that have been marginalized in the past. So I think we're using the past, which is real. I mean, oppression and racism is real in hiring, in the past. I think people are using that to sort of say now, okay, now you have to, well, to your point, white owners have to observe a certain level of diversity that Black companies still might. A Black person could still say, I'm not hiring anybody white. It's all Black.
I can put it on my T-shirt and walk around.
I don't think a white business owner can do that.
And Black people will applaud it.
Yeah, I don't think a white business owner can do that now. I mean, you could. I think
you can.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
You can. Listen, comedians struggle with talk. I mean, I think the issue is so polarized, and in some ways, instead of taking advantage of this time of diversity and really moving forward, we really are kind of piling on. And I think taking advantage of the fact that, you can't say it, but I can. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize that doesn't make the situation in America better, because that wasn't the dream. You know, we harken back to Martin Luther King. The whole idea was not to be black and white. Here's a black-owned business versus a white-owned business. It was that we would all come together. We'd all be able to go to school together. Mm-hmm. We'd all be able to share that business together and be able to make decisions that if this guy's better, in my opinion, than this black guy, I want to be able to hire him. Well, if we get to the point we say, whether he's good or better or not, just for the look's sake, hire that guy, not only are we going to have resentment, but I wonder, does that take away from business and capitalism in America working the way it's supposed to work? I'm not against affirmative action, but I'm simply saying I think that we step too far in the place where we're no longer really looking for an equal playing field. I think I think it damages us where we don't have to come up. We recognize that there's a certain amount that you got to get me in here. I don't have to be the best coach. I don't have to have a winning record. I'm black. So if you look at football, I don't think a good, solid business owner would look at that and say, that's a good business plan. He's black. He's just not the best. He just doesn't have the greatest arm, but he's black. Mm-hmm. I've never known him to manage people. Well, he's never had an opportunity to manage people. Well, let's practice with my business. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't. I get it. He's never had an opportunity. But do we look at Jerry Jones and say, at 14, you were in that crowd, you better hire one. You better let him practice on your team for the next 5-6 years. I'm not sure if I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think part of the dynamic here and part of the issue that we have is that 1957 wasn't that long ago. We treated it like it was like eons ago, and it wasn't. I was born in '64, so it wasn't that long ago. And I think what happens is when you look back, there's a what we would consider a large, that 65-year gap where we just haven't been honest about the history. And so I think you have retroactive attempts to sort of go back and sort of fix the things that were obviously out of order. Right. I think that's part of what this is. I think it's part of like there's this huge silence, about this issue. And I think that people are saying, Jerry, you got to make it right. You do anything in the next 65 years to make it right? Because now people are looking back and say that's clearly wrong, obviously wrong. It should be remedied. We're expecting him to remedy it. And in no smart part, because he can't. We're not asking the other kids in that picture to remedy it.
Right.
We're a $1 billion business to remedy it because it's in his power to do, which he has admitted. I mean, it's obvious. And again, he doesn't have to admit it. We know he's worth billions of dollars. So that is a large part of the thing as well. It's like, Jerry, you could do this if you wanted to. And you would suffer no real financial harm if you did, which is, again, also true. But that doesn't mean that you should or can impose it on him. It just means that those things are true. I mean, you could have done more is true. You could have done more to do the diversity true. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? In the end of the day, I don't think we can fix the past by making people pay for it, and pay for it by the fact that you were there. You were white. You were there. You were a product of your time, and you should fix it without a crime. Again, I look at Jerry Jones and I say, yeah, if you lynch a guy, there's some stuff that needs to happen, right? I see you, and Jerry Jones is the guy with the cigarette coming out of his mouth and he's like menacing that, there's something there. But you take a ninth grader who's like, there's a crowd out here. I'm in the crowd. I remember when they were, I was in Baltimore, and during the times of the riots with the Freddie Gray. Mm-hmm. Now, I would imagine if someone took a picture of me and I'm just there, what do I owe? I mean, you saw the CVS burning over there. I was down there like that next day. Do I owe CVS? I mean, am I responsible for fixing Baltimore? I came from Delaware and drove down there. So whatever that Jerry Jones was there, we don't know the backstory. Why do we naturally assume he is a racist and with a straw hanging out of his mouth and he owes somebody something? When in reality, we don't really know. We don't really have a history of racism from Jerry Jones, other than him being in a
Right.
picture in the 9th grade.
That's the only thing that we know
That's
about.
the only thing. So the
Yeah.
idea that like you need to fix this, Jerry, and you could because you have money, I think in some ways it's unfair. If this were black, I'd hate to be black and a billionaire or multi-millionaire, and someone say, "Hey, I saw you in a picture standing there on the corner. You're not doing anything for that project." I was just like, "Yeah, y'all took a picture of me. I was walking through. It's not my project." Yeah, well, you know, you were there and you got millions of dollars. You need to fix that. You owe us. I think that polarizes the country.
Yeah. Let's see, we have a comment, and then we're a bit over time, so we'll take this comment and skedaddle. William Hill says, comment, I think we just need something to debate. I would like to know whether George Washington really did tell a lie. Let's debate that because I've been hurt over not being sure.
Well. No, you know what? I think that in a lot of ways, that's probably true. And because, you know, it keeps us from moving on.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps us from moving on.
Yeah.
And I think there are elements in even in the black community that are complicit in that. Let's revisit history. Let's fight over Marcus Garvey, whether he did this or did that. And it keeps us from moving on. That's why so many minorities are going to, as you look at it, I mean, black people are going to be isolated in America very, very soon, where, you know, minorities are flocking to conservative views. Minorities are flocking to, if you will, the other side, if we can look at it like that, for that very same reason. They don't want to have to fight over history. There's enough in the present, and there are people who are looking forward. We are one of the few people who are still looking backwards, and we can't go anywhere driving with our eyes on the rearview mirror. You know, so I mean, the fact that we're crashing every week or so, the fact that we've got Kanye driving some of these buses, we shouldn't be shocked that the guy who's with a mask over his face is crashing the bus, right? We shouldn't be shocked that, like, yeah, what's going to happen in the future? Nah, I want to talk about Malcolm X. What's going to happen in the future? Nah, what about Nat? What about Nat Turner? Okay, great. That's a wonderful conversation. It has nothing to do with where we're going. And until we stop complaining and start moving and coming together, man, we're just going to stay right here in the noise.
No, that's good. That's man, we're going to end it there. That's well put. That's sort of what we need to do. So, man, let's end it there. We're a little over, but I mean, that's cool. It was a good conversation, man. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch live, and was going to watch on the replay, and everyone who took time to make comments. We certainly appreciate your comments and joining on the conversation. So thank you very much. And man, look forward to it next week. We'll be back at it with one or more topics to discuss, and we'll crack them open, try to get past the noise.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it.
All right. Good night, everyone, and God bless. See you next week.
Good night.